Hello, my name is Jana. I live in a forest and I make things. And today I want to share with you my new long-term English paper piecing project. It's a special project for days while I feel a little bit meh and I don't want to do anything, but I don't want to just sit there. And this is why I need a long-term handwork project just to be there in case of emergency. And today is one of those days where I feel a little bit unmotivated to do anything, so I'm going to show you the box. Here it is. Maybe not an ideal setup, but a box is a good thing because I can put it in a corner when I don't need it and I can pull it out when I do need it, and everything that I need is in the box. Okay, so here's my little box in a box. It's where I keep my units from my English paper piecing, not only for this project but for everything else and other, bits and bobs might be useful. And the unit that I'm using right now is an 1-inch square. So here is that. Next, the most important part in the box is a collection of Japanese textured cotton fabric. Where I live, it's called like that. I can buy a set of 6 Japanese cotton fabrics for patchwork. Maybe it's called something else where you live, but that's why I know it is. The interesting thing about this fabric is that the pattern on the fabric isn't printed, it's woven. And generally all the fabrics that I buy are kind of very earthy, very natural colors, and they all go together really well. And my previous EPP quilt was made out of those exact fabrics. Some of them are still in the box, what's left of them. And that's, right now, it's one of my favorite materials to work with. And because the colors are so nice and natural, and they usually go together really well. I normally don't use purples and pinks, but I bought a set and I thought, well, maybe they will fit in. I'm not sure. I'll experiment with that. What I'm doing with the fabrics is whenever I'm ordering something online, if I have the means, I'm going to throw in 1 or 2 sets of those fabrics right now, because I'm at a stage where I know that I don't have enough even for a baby quilt, I don't think. So I'm collecting fabrics for the project, hoping that it's going to be enough. But it's a long-term project, so here's what I'm doing after I've received my little set of fabrics. Here's a pile of fabric, and we're looking for something that's going to make a pretty granny square. We have something bright and interesting in the middle, we have something light and neutral in the middle layer, and we have something dark and interesting on the outside. There is going to be another layer which goes in between the blocks, and it's going to be light. So I'm looking for 3 colors. One of them needs to be light and neutral, and 2 need to be interesting and darker, maybe a nice balance, so there's contrast to the pattern. So I'm going to be looking through my pile of fabric. I usually put them into piles, like I have the lights here. Is this a light or is it a medium? I call it a light. And those are my new fabrics. They're kind of more dark and interesting. And this is a nice brown color from my previous life, and it's really dark and it goes well for the center. So I'm just looking for different fabrics, and when I buy a set, usually a lot of things go together. And today I was looking through stuff and I thought, well, this is a nice, interesting combination that I don't usually use because it has purple in it. I usually don't work with purple. I think that this is kind of cool. So I take the fabrics and I choose maybe 2 or 3 color combinations that I like, and I start cutting the pieces out. Here are some units that I've prepared earlier for basting. One of them is a granny square block number 1. I have this red, I have this dark brown for center, and I have this nice neutral like gray for the middle layer. Now I have this light blue for the lights. I have this already basted yellow for the center, and I have this purple for the outside. I think it looks interesting. And these are some spare pieces of fabric that I had. I like to prepare some lights for future use because in between my blocks I'm going to have light colors, and I just make them and I baste them and I store them in a little box for future use. And maybe some spare centers, they also come in handy. Now, should I show you how to thread baste and join together an English baby piecing block? Maybe very, very briefly. Here is a paper unit that I'm using. It's a 1-inch square that I cut out of paper with scissors with my own 2 hands. They don't have to be perfect, but they need to be more or less perfect. Okay, now here's a little piece of fabric that I'm going to use. And I'm just trying to make sure that it's mostly square to the pattern because I didn't cut it out really good, but the pattern is woven, so it's really easy to see if I'm going with the grain of the fabric. And the thread that I'm using for basting is actually crochet thread, and I like it because it's really easy to see on the finished block. And this way, when I'm taking the papers out, I can see where my thread still is or isn't, and this way it's less likely that I'm going to leave some papers in. We all know how it works. So I take my paper and my fabric and I just go through the fabric. I go through the paper piece. I know some people don't do it like that. I learned it like that. That's how I do it. This way it's not going anywhere. And I'm so used to doing it that I'm doing it automatically and it's all the same every time. There we have a 1 basted unit. All of my units are now basted. These ones are my spares. They will go into a box to use later if I need to. And these ones I will usually at this point organize into some kinds of envelopes, because making the units and joining the units are 2 very different activities. Choosing and cutting the fabric, playing with fabric, making a mess on the desk is one very specific activity, and I like to do things in batches, like messy desk activities on one day, clean desk activities on other days. And joining the block is a clean desk activity, even though in all honesty it doesn't even require a desk. My on-the-go setup looks something like this. I have a thimble, a clip, thread, scissors, and my units. And I can take it onto a train and work on it while I'm anywhere in the world. One of my favorite things about this block is that I can keep going and sewing it without breaking the thread. I add those, and then I can just continue going with my thread. This seam is going to stay open for a bit, but we'll get back to it once we finish with the block. And I just keep adding elements all the way around, and here I can just close this one and the block is going to be finished. It's very relaxing. Joining the pieces is really easy. I take my center and I take my light color and I put them right sides together, make sure that the corners are matching. Then I take my needle and thread and I go through the corner of one of the pieces, and I just start sewing over the edge with a simple whip stitch. Once I get to the corner, I make 1 or 2 extra stitches to make sure that everything stays in place. And then I can open the sewing and see that everything fits together, no holes, no nothing. And I can add another piece like so. Now that my two new blocks are ready, it's time to add them to the pile. I have made 9 blocks earlier, and I've also added this one just to make things more square. So now I have 12 blocks ready to go, and I'm going to keep going until I'm bored. The plan for now is to keep going with making the blocks until I have 25 of them. It's going to be a 5x5 grid. Then I'm going to start joining them and see what happens. I don't know how big I want the final thing to be. I could stop at any moment. Well, it has to be a rectangle for me to stop, but you know what I mean. I'm not sure if it's going to be a baby quilt or a grown-up quilt. Maybe I will keep going until I get a king size or something like this. Sounds like me. I could do this, but I'll probably get bored earlier. The problem with a king size quilt isn't that it's a lot of patchwork. It's about the wadding and the backing that gets complicated once you get to a certain size. So I'll just keep going for now, and the next update on this project is going to be when I make up my mind, when I make some decisions, see what happens then. But yeah, the long-term project, the main idea behind having a long-term project is just having some kind of default action, something to do without too much thinking. And that's what those kinds of projects are good for. And I actually think that it would work really well as a temperature quilt. Now when I think about it, you could have like the lowest temperature in the middle and the highest temperature on the perimeter, and it would work as a temperature quilt. But I'm not making a temperature quilt. I'm way too chaotic for that. So I'll just keep going and see how it goes. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it, and I'm going to go and do something else now. Hopefully this video is shorter than the previous one. So, okay, bye.